pulling the shoulder blades back, baring the chest, and just moving the head. And then into prayer again. So when we're in prayer, the hands are, all the fingers touching, thumbs against the side. So the hand is just one thing. It's as though it doesn't really have fingers. And then the hands touch so that the two hands become one thing. So now just feel that everything is gathered into this local space, which is the position of your hands. So the middle fingers are the part that we feel in the hand, really. So all the fingers are gathered around the middle fingers, and the middle fingers become an image of the spine. So the middle fingers point up, and that's as though it's my extending spine. And now just separate the hands, but keep the fingers together, and just turn the hands to face out. And now we just want to relax the hand in order to get the Tai Chi hand. So remember Chen Manqing's hand? So all the fingers just slightly separate. It's like the hand expands and relaxes. So there's now a little bit of space between all the fingers. So now the one hand has become 5 fingers. And there's a little bit of a fluttery sense in the fingers, like all the fingers are independent of each other a little bit. So suddenly that one thing has become very lively, potentially. So let's bring it back into prayer again. So all the fingers come to touch, the two hands touch, and you just feel the middle fingers extending upwards. So that's the vertical axis, if you like. It's our connection to the earth and the heavens. And then just separate the hands. And just let the fingers separate. Yeah, so you've got this sort of movement between the fingers. So it's like a sense of humor almost. It's almost like a giggly quality to the hands. Yeah, so we want to feel how, having our body configured slightly differently really changes the mind. So this is a much lighter mind when the fingers are separated than when the fingers are together and we're in prayer, which is a little bit somber and serious. Okay. And now just bring the hands down and just breathe with it, but feeling all the 5 fingers. So there's a slight flutter in the fingers, almost like each one is dancing a little bit. Feel the spine arches back to open the hands, and the spine bows forwards to bring the hands together. Feel the upper chest expanding here. And then that relaxes. And then I pull my belly in and up to push my diaphragm up. And then that relaxes. So working to get as much air in as possible. And relaxing that work face, some of the air will come out. And then working an exhale here. So really pulling in. All the air goes out the lungs. And then I relax that and something comes back in. All the time I've got this activity in the fingers, this sort of flutter. And then start turning a little bit with it. So as you open up the hands, just turn to the side or to the corner. And then as the hands come in, turn back to the front. And again, feel the quality. So as I open the hands, it's like I cheer up. My heart lifts, my spirit lifts. And then as the hands come in, I get a little bit sad. And I'm coming back to the middle. It's like a child, going out to play and then being called back in by its parent. And then let it become the pulling in the rope. The hand reaches out, but it's the elbow that pulls back. I want as much mobility in my shoulder blades as possible. So it's as though my shoulder's reaching down the arm into the fingers. And then it's the shoulder blade really that pulls back, but you sort of feel it in the elbow. And then reaching up. Again, feel the shoulder blade reaching right up, trying to pull away from its position on the back. So we just want real mobility in the shoulder blades. So keep that fluttery feeling in the fingers if you can. It just lightens everything. You've got 5 fingers in each hand, and feel them sort of emanating from the shoulder rather than from the hand. So those 5 fingers are a little bit separate all the way down your arm. Okay. And now let's try a few just pulling the sphincters. So tightening, really bowing the back, and then opening that. Pulling, tightening all the ring muscles in your body, including the eyes and the mouth. And then let every one of them relax. Pull and push. Good. And now let's try just doing the figure of 8. Just trying to get as much movement in, especially my spine. So my spine's tipping, turning, twisting. So the 2 sides of my body are doing opposite things in as many ways as possible. Let the head go as well. So just don't let the eyes lock. When you look at something with your eyes, then you'll see that thing. But when you glance fleetingly, then you're much more likely to catch energy. So with the eyes, we never stare. We're constantly moving the eyes over the object that we're looking at. And if anything, just sort of glancing from the corner of the eye. That's just activating the peripheral vision, really. and then just wind it down. And then just bring the fingers to touch, so the 10 fingers all join together into one line that's directing upwards through the middle fingers. Feel the dantian also coming back to a oneness. Okay, so let's turn. I'm turning and feeling the difference between the two legs. So as I turn here, I'm leaving this leg behind, and that gives the toes this extension. And then I curl the toes up to pull myself back round. And then let's slip into the second one. Feel the turning. It turns around a center, so I have to feel the center of the turning. And here the center is moving side to side. So there's the centrifugal and the centripetal. So the centrifugal is my arms being thrown outwards by the turning. The centripetal is this sense that I'm gathering around the center of turning. So the arms fly out, but then they continue wrapping around and squeeze the center. I want to feel the mind that is with each. The centrifugal mind, which is this bright levity type mind, which is casting outwards all the time. And the centripetal mind, which is this pulling in to this serious center. And that's the gravity. So the centripetal, it gathers in, condenses, and sinks because it gathers mass as it gathers substance. The centrifugal is this sense of evaporation, which will lift. Okay, now let's just bring it to riding horse. And again, the gravity and levity. Gravity is this gathering in and sinking down. And levity is this effusive rising up. So we tend to concentrate on the gravity because what we want is to develop a root, a connection, a proper energetic connection to the ground, which most people don't have. And when you find someone that does have like a natural root, they're sort of naturally quite shy and a little bit somber. So you can see why people aren't naturally drawn to trying to develop a root, because it just requires you just to become serious and heavy. But then once you've got that connection to the ground, then the lightness comes in, the proper lightness, rather than just this effusive bumptiousness. Okay, let's just reach out and just gather gravity. So you're gathering an armful of these lines that are sinking down, pulling them into your spine, and then just wriggling a little bit to get it across the sacrum and down the legs. Reaching up, gathering in. So this is like the centripetal, gathering in gravity, letting it sink down my spine, shaking the hips to get it to go down each leg. So it has to split at the sacrum. And that's quite difficult because I have to relax that point. And that point tends to be really quite tense because of the struggle with holding ourselves up with the legs. So I pull in and splitting at the sacrum and down. But keep that fluttery feel in the fingers. And that will lend it, whatever you do, some lightness. You're like a piano player. Got this wonderful dexterous independence in all the fingers. And now just some of the two circles, which is similar. It's just that same exercise really, but it's just split into the two sides. So alternating rather than doing them together. I want to feel the shoulder blade again. So it's yielding, two components of yielding. One, reaching behind the person, and then two, bringing them into a space that you've made within yourself. So extending and gathering. So to yield properly, your elbow needs to stay out and up. When I'm pulling in the rope, I'm just pulling the elbows in because I'm just yanking something. This yielding is getting behind the thing and just coaxing it through. For that, my elbow has to stay up. I have to create a round space with my arm. Feel it, the arm goes out. And then I create this round softness here beneath my collarbone. A really tender hollow within which, in my mind at least, I can allow the other to nestle. So that's the arm. It's like the armpit, but it's here as much as it is underneath here. Yeah. And then we just want to feel that in the arm, in the leg. So I've got the leg pits here, but then I've got these hollows here. That whole area has to soften and enlarge. So I have to be careful that I don't bring my weight too soon into this foot. Otherwise, I'll squash that space. So in the same way with the arm goes out, and then it's almost like I do this. It's like going over the top of the figure eight. My elbow comes up, and my hand goes down. That's the feeling of retrieving ward off. So I go out, and then this happens. So it's my elbow coming up and away, which is pulling this space open. And it's exactly the same with the leg. So this goes out. Now the elbow comes up in order to get behind the person, but similarly my knee goes up and out in order to get around the person, and then I can come into this foot. Legs are really difficult because they're having to yield in the same way that the arms do, but they're also having to support my weight. So this knee has to go out here, goes out, so that this space opens up and contains. So the knees, same as with the arms, the elbows are very active when we're switching from yield to attack and back again. It's the same with the legs. The knees are really active. So so that point of the yield, that where the hand changes from going out to beginning to wrap around and come in, that's the point where something has to really open, and that's the difficult point emotionally. That's like a point of real tenderizing and opening up, making yourself vulnerable, or allowing yourself to become vulnerable. So without that, the yielding, it's just a technique for getting out of the way of the other person. We want it to be something that emotionally affects them, so moves them, not just physically. And for that, I have to be prepared to be moved by it. Okay. And now let's just try a bit of going backwards and forwards, but with the same feeling of the knee going around. So it's my knee. My knee is the equivalent to my elbow. If you think when I'm sending my hand out to yield rather than attack, if I'm sending my hand out to attack, my elbow stays down in order to get this twisting, spiraling energy out. But when I'm yielding, I'm looping around the person like I'm sending out a lasso. I'm not sending out a straight line that's going to penetrate them. I'm looping around them. And for that, I need to bring the elbow up. It's the elbow coming up that gives the possibility of a return. And it's exactly the same with the leg. So when I pull myself forwards, I have to make sure that this knee goes out. And it's the back leg that's difficult. And for me, really, the main difficulty with the use of the legs is that we have to really delay the weight transfer. So I want this knee to really start pulling me, and then slowly my weight gets drawn along. And then you're stretching this area all the time, which is what we want, so that the two legs remain separate. And then you can get real single weightedness. When one fills, the other one will naturally empty. So otherwise, the two legs always want to stay a little bit full to give me this sense of strength and solidity and stability. So this knee goes out. The knee is free for a moment until it starts gathering the weight, and then the need to support that weight locks it up. So I want to feel that moment of freedom in the knee when the leg is completely empty, and then the knee can go out. Ooh. So just have to make sure this leg is pulling. So the leg is trying to pull my weight into it like this, but I have to really delay it, really keep the weight in this leg as long as possible. Because we cheat, I start pulling a little bit with this leg, and then this leg pushes my weight across. So I just have to make sure it's really single weightedness. One leg is doing one thing very clearly, and the other leg is doing the other thing. So pull. And then the other foot forwards. This is real Tai Chi. So basically, it's as difficult as you want it to be. The more you concentrate, the more your mind can actually clarify the situation, the more difficult it is physically to actually accomplish what you're trying to do. And that's just Tai Chi through and through. So you can gauge how much energy you have and how much intensity, concentration, spirit, clarity you want to lend the work that you do. The last thing we want is to work mindlessly, to get into just a habit of going through the motions. That's, you know, what in Tai Chi they say that's worse than not practicing at all. So this goes out and slowly my weight gets sucked along. Ooh. So it's got a lot to do with a sort of transformative spirit. Let's just bring it back. So imagine, you know, those images of swarms of bees or flocks of birds, and it just looks like it's one entity, but it's actually made up of thousands, if not millions, of individuals, all tuned into each other, all tuned into the collective. So that's the quality of our body that we would like. It's rather than just being a lump, it's a swarm. It's made of tiny, tiny pieces all together. And then we just want to develop the mind, the intending mind, the mind that creates these different shapes. Same way when you see those flocks of birds and they just suddenly change direction, they all were like a school of fish. It's like there's a bigger mind that's controlling the collective. And that's the feeling with our body. And so when I send my hand out, I'm not just using muscles to send this thing forwards. It's like something in my mind is squeezing to squeeze out a plume of bees from this swarm. So that's the feeling with the movement that we do. And it just requires a very different mind, a mind that's really focused. So that, imagine the mind has to, first of all, be big enough to contain this swarm. It has to be relaxed enough so that each individual within the swarm can be independent of the ones around it. And then it needs to be focused enough and intense enough to be able to direct this swarm and change it into as many different shapes as possible. Okay, so let's just try just the stepping. This is real swarm work, really. I sink into one foot, it becomes full. The other foot comes up, and then with my mind, I just extend out this limb, and then I pull myself across. So it's like I'm just changing shape all the time. And again, we just want to move slowly. So I really have to set up a pull. This foot now is pulling my body back. And I just don't want the body to move too readily. And then this foot pulls and slowly I get sucked into the foot. So it's a very fluid mind, but the fluid is quite viscous. It's always trying to slow down and come to a stop. I pull. And just feel it as I sink into this foot. This foot empties. All its fullness is flushed out, and then it's active. It's got activity. It can pull me back. And now this one is empty, and then it pulls me into it. flushes out. Pull. This one flushes out, and then it can just come up. And then I step. Oh, this one flushes out. Oh, now let's try a little bit with the other foot. So the foot extends. So for the foot to go out, it's like I need to extend a protuberance with my mind. Something in me squeezes and sends out this limb, but it's a limb made up of bees, remember, it's part of the swarm. Pulling back, and ooh. Oh. Ugh. It's like you're pulling something really heavy, something that's heavy but lubricated. So it will slip and slide, but it needs a bit of a tug. So that pulling action, you're constantly imposing tensile forces on this area, pulls. You're stretching the sacral area all the time. So that's the part of our body, really, the sacrum, the hip girdle, that we'd like to split up into at least two halves, if not as many pieces as possible. Okay, it's difficult, this. Again, just feel it sinking. Yeah, so the swarm, I find that such a useful image. Then even when the swarm is still, it hasn't solidified, it's still lots and lots of individual pieces. They're just no longer moving. It's like the swarm of bees that's settled onto something. You know, it just needs a little bit of spirit and they'll all take off, and then the whole swarm will just fly as though it's one thing. So that's the quality of liveliness that we would like. It's not just that I have spirit. I have loads and loads of different parts, all these different bones, all these different joints, all the cells even. And each one has a little bit of independent spirit. That's the feeling. So if I can really connect to that, it's almost like I go crazy. Something in me has to be really quiet and settled to allow the swarm to split into all of its individual parts. Okay, now let's just try just a little bit of pulling up the knee. Because what I want is to get my tail splitting from my sacrum. So I pull up the leg, and that brings the sacrum down. But if I really pull the knee up, then my tail extends out of the sacrum and down the leg and into the ground. So this is really important. The tail. The tail is underneath. It's of your lower body. And so if I want to really get it active, it's like I have some real primitive activity beneath my sacrum in my lower body. And that's such a different mind to the sort of refined thinking mind that we go about with. So when I can get the tail extending down, I become a creature, like an animal, just full of these gut feelings, these instincts and urges and drives. I no longer have the refinement of thought, especially not linguistic thought. So I pull this up and it just cranks my tail down the supporting leg. Pulling myself into it. This knee just comes up and then I just pull it higher than it will really wants to come. And that will really work on the lower back, sacrum, tail. And pulling up. So we'd like to be able to get the knee up without having to use the arms. But, that's going to take a long time to get that sort of flexibility. Remember that picture of Iyengar, and he's standing like this, and this leg is just wrapped behind his neck. And just imagine how that would feel if you could get this right up and just lock it behind your neck, how open you'd have to be in the groin and how extended your tail would have to be. And one more. Okay, so let's finish. So back into riding the horse for a moment. Yeah, so this whole area, which is in a way is the most problematic area in the body, the hips, the sacrum, the lower back. This is the part we really like to split up into as many parts as possible. And we tend to freeze it all together, lock it into sort of one thing, because that gives us then we can be careless then without injuring ourselves. So when this becomes really fluid and loose and relaxed, then it's really quite easy to injure this area. So first we need to do the work to just quieten the mind, bring ourselves back to a center, the Danchen, and then we can allow the stiffness that we institute in order to have a noisy mind. We can allow that stiffness to relax. And then we just have a fluidity. The energy can pass through this region instead of getting blocked there. Okay, so let's just bring it up. So this is always there. And again, this is, you think, we've got the two legs. In fact, when we're standing like this, it's as though we only have one. And then I just bring in a little bit of a turn and a shift of weight. And suddenly I've got all the different parts of the leg, all the toes. Yeah, so that thing we did, just separating the fingers and letting a little bit of space between the fingers, and that feeling, that that simple act just changes your mind. You just become more cheerful and more open. So we would like that to be in the feet as well. We'd like a little bit of space between all the toes so that each toe can be a little bit independent of the ones around it. People here have that because they're so used to going barefoot everywhere, you know, of the younger generation. My old ladies, that because they've worn like stilettos and tight shoes, their toes, their foot is just like one thing. All the toes are sort of wrapped over each other. There's no space between their toes at all. And you can really see how that really sort of limits the mind. So this feeling that there's all this wriggly activity in my feet. So all of these, they're like little things you can just practice whenever. You know, you could be doing the washing up or standing at the bus stop and be just getting your toes writhing inside your shoe. You wear shoes that are wide enough to get a little bit of space between the toes. Okay, and then just bringing it home.